people think I'm just condemned to this misery. And the more they believe that, the more miserable they get. And so if instead you say, I can teach my brain to modulate these signals. Right now, for example, Fred, you're sitting in a chair, I guess. You were not aware of the sensations of your body touching the chair. And so your brain automatically just shuts it down. I don't need to pay attention to that. It doesn't matter. Your brain can do that with pain, too. And the problem with pain is that a lot of people, when they've been injured, they want to be back just the way they were before it happened. I get that. But all that does is get you to pay more attention to the pain and less to other things you would ordinarily be paying attention to. That's where the focus of attention in hypnosis is so useful, because it gets you to focus on what you're for, what you want, not on what you're against or frustrated by.
Hi, this is Gary Leslie from Bay City, Michigan, and I play at the Bay Valley Golf Club. This is Golf Smarter number 937.
The power of self-hypnosis to improve a golfer's focus with Dr. David Spiegel.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome to the Golf Smarter podcast, Dr. Spiegel.
Thank you, Fred. I'm delighted to be here.
It's great to have you on. We always like the Stanford connection anytime we can get it.
Terrific. Well,
keep it in the family.
Happy to be with you. You bet.
Yeah. So I want to go right to this and just ask you, what is self-hypnosis?
Well, all hypnosis is really self-hypnosis, and it's a capacity that people have that it involves three fundamental features. The first is absorption, getting so caught up in something that you forget you're engaging in it, you just become a part of it. So have you ever had the experience when you're golfing, for example, of just being in the flow of the game and not worrying about anything you have to do later, not wondering how you got here or who the other players are, just you're in it. That sense of flow or engagement is typical of hypnosis. It's been called believed in imagination. So you're in a world that you've created. And to do that, you dissociate. You put outside of conscious awareness things that would ordinarily be in consciousness. So you cease to worry about things. And I heard you on your, Tiger's 5 Things podcast, talking about the fact that golf is not a contact sport, that it really doesn't matter what the other players are doing. What matters is what you're doing. You're competing with yourself, not someone else. And so hypnosis helps you put outside of conscious awareness things that would be in consciousness to enable you to totally absorb yourself in your experience. Now, the third part is the most, in some ways, interesting part. And that's what people have been fearful of, suggestibility. Somebody will make you, cluck like a chicken, or the football coach will dance like a ballerina in front of 500 people and they'll laugh. I don't like stage hypnosis. But there is a lesson there, and that is you can try out being different. You can let go, suppress your usual expectations of who you are and what you are, the part of your brain that worries about what other people are thinking about, and just let yourself try out being different and see what it feels like. And so it makes hypnosis a beautiful setting for change, for focusing on something that's important, putting outside of awareness things that are interfering, and try out being different, see what it feels like.
Well, we talk about flow state a lot on this show. We've had a lot of people on talking about flow state. So right. I guess it's part of that.
I knew Csikszentmihalyi, his book Flow. And, one of the things he said about flow is that it's an autotelic experience. It feels so good doing it that it's its own reward. And there is a way in which hypnosis can be used to not just focus better, not just perform better, but change the experience so that the presence of it itself is the reward, is the experience. And I think one problem that many athletes have, including golfers, from what I understand, is that you focus too much on the outcome and not enough on the process. If you're busy worrying about what it's going to mean if you wind up in the rough or in a lake somewhere, you're disconnecting yourself from what really matters. There's a book called Zen and the Art of Archery, in which a British researcher interviewed a bunch of Zen masters. And the lesson from Zen and the Art of Archery is most archers make the mistake of focusing on the target. And you might think to yourself, well, what the hell are you supposed to focus on? Well, he said, what matters is your relationship with the bow and arrow. And if the relationship is correct, the arrow will go where you want it to go. And that's a real analogy, I think, for golf, where, if you're focusing too, obviously you got to pay attention to where the ball's going, but that's not where the action is. The action is your connection with the club and the ball and how you connect with it. And then hopefully it will wind up in the right place. But if you're focusing on the green up there, you may be disconnecting from the feelings of your body connecting with and managing the club.
Mm. Well, we've had multiple conversations here on Golf Smarter, and that's why it's called Golf Smarter. We've talked to Dr. Joe Parent, who wrote Zen Golf, and talked frequently about it's the process, not the outcome, or NATO golf, not attached to outcome. I mean, there's so many.
I like that.
We've done so many
That's
different
good.
episodes talking about this very thing about doing that. But there's also the conversations we've had with neuroscientists about not focusing on your body, but focusing on external things. Because when athletes start to focus on internal, that's when they get themselves in trouble.
I'm not sure that's true. I don't know who they were and what their point was, but
Sure.
I actually think that your body is your primary ally in athletic performance, and you want to be paying attention to it. And when you're using your body well and it's serving you well, you're sort of enjoying one another. I'll give you an example, Fred. Years ago, Stanford, as you know, your son went to Stanford, has a fabulous women's swimming team. I mean, they are just the best, and they're the swimmers are in the Olympics all the
almost
time.
every year.
Yep. But their coach noticed that they were actually swimming faster in practice than they were in meets. And he said, "What the hell is that about? I mean, you would think, it matters. Your energy is up, you're focused, you're not concentrating on anything else." But that's what he observed. So what we realized in talking to these young women is that they were being distracted by the women swimming in the next lane during a meet. Am I keeping up with her? Is she doing something I should be doing? And, swimming is not a contact sport. Neither is, hopefully, is golf. And so you're diffusing your energy in a non-productive way if you're paying attention to what she's doing in the next lane, because it doesn't matter. What matters is how you're swimming. So I had them practice doing self-hypnosis, swimming their best race, just how they related to their body, how it felt, how they connected with their muscles, how they swam forcefully but efficiently, not wasting energy in part of a stroke that doesn't actually move them forward. And they did much better because they focused on what they needed to focus on, which is their connection with their body and how they made it swim as efficiently and fast as possible.
Sure. And with golf, it's really focused on yourself. You don't worry about the competition because it's not, your score against their score. You're not on offense and defense.
Right.
You've got to just play your game. And you hear so many people, especially the pros on Sundays after their game. It's like, I just had to stay in my lane. I had to focus on myself and my game, and whatever happens outside, I can't control. Right.
And so but worse than that, if it becomes a distraction, if you are thinking about it and what he or she is doing, you're disconnecting yourself from what matters, which is how you and your body get together. And obviously, the obvious example, I can't get through an interview on golf and hypnosis without mentioning Tiger. And he apparently, I don't know anything personally about it, but he apparently trained and routinely used hypnosis. And one of the things he did was he would mentally rehearse in a hypnotic-like state every shot before he took it. So he was kind of programming his body to respond. And the other thing that's so striking about him is just how glacially calm he is in the most stressful possible circumstances. And there it has to do, I think, with the ability of people using hypnosis to manage the stress in their body in a way that it doesn't interfere, that they're aroused, but they're not overwhelmed or tensing muscles inappropriately, because you really need smooth coordination among muscle activity to make the best shot. And if you're unduly tense in spite of that, bad things will happen.
How does this differ than visualization?
Well, visualization is primarily visual, not somatic. So it can get you to think about it, but you're thinking about it as if you were watching your own movie rather than feeling it from inside. And so one of the standard ways in hypnosis that's different, I will have people use visualization, but do it to get their body into a state that is relaxed and comfortable. So the last thing I do is say, picture yourself being relaxed, because, that's like saying, don't think about purple elephants, oh, wait a minute, I'm not relaxed, So instead, I use imagery to have people imagine a situation where their bodies are safe and comfortable. Imagine you're in a bath, a lake, a hot tub, or floating in space, and get your body to let go first, and then deal with whatever is stressing you. So typically, you picture yourself somewhere where your body is comfortable, and then you picture what do I want my body to do? How can I get my body to respond in a way that will help me accomplish what I want to accomplish? But first, just get it comfortable. My closest experience was I was trying to water ski. It looked so cool, And I'm a pretty good downhill skier, but I just kept doing face plants in the water, and I was more and more frustrated. And then I thought, come on, Spiegel, you do this for a living, So I pictured my body first floating in a lake, in Donner Lake. And then I said to myself, two things I want you to remember: arms straight, knees bent. Arms straight, knees bent. Because, you do the opposite. If you're anxious, you pull back, and that makes the steadiness of the pull variable, which is very hard to deal with. And if your knees are straight, you can't absorb shock. So any slight wave or something is going to knock you over. So I've been water skiing ever since. I was up and I stayed up. And it was just programming my body to do what it needed to do, not react to the sense of tension and fear that comes if you think the thing's going to pull you over. So it's a simple example, and it was not a great athletic accomplishment, but it wasn't bad either.
But it was an accomplishment,
right.
Nonetheless. Right. All right, let's take a time out. We'll be back right after this. So, David, you're saying that self-hypnosis, or it's all self-hypnosis, is good for golfers.
Yes, absolutely. And, of course, Tiger is the prime example. But if I was thinking of another story that you told on that podcast, Fred, about the 17-year-old who you were kind of mentoring, and how he looked really promising. You said he looked very promising when he was calm, but he fell apart when he was anxious. And one day you had suggested meditation or listening to calming slow music, and he did really well. And then the next day he blew it. And you talked about math, which is important. There are math problems that matter. But when I'm thinking, my role as a psychiatrist is, his problem was just he didn't know how to handle his anxiety. That, anxiety is a good thing in that it alerts you to what you need to be concerned about, but it's not a good thing in that it can cause reactions in your body. And you were talking about your friend skiing, what I call the snowball effect of anxiety. And that is, you worry about something like, can I make this shot? And then your body starts to react to that, and it starts to tense up because it's a hard shot, and you're worried about running up a bad score and all this. And so then your body says, now he's really worried, and it gets more tense. And then you notice that, your gut tightens up, you start to sweat, your heart rate goes up, and then you think, oh boy, this must be really bad. And so it's like a snowball rolling downhill. It gets worse and worse. Now, when you're faced with a stressor, it's a stressor. You got to deal with it. You don't know how. That's part of what's making you anxious. I start with hypnosis from the body up rather than the head down. I say there's one aspect of this situation you actually have immediate control over, and that's how your body's reacting to it. So what I do is have people imagine in hypnosis, look up, close your eyes, take a deep breath. Imagine you're floating in a bath, a lake, a hot tub, or floating in space. Get your body comfortable. Now, once your body is better, then picture on an imaginary screen the problem you're trying to deal with, but with the rule that no matter what you see on the screen, you keep your body comfortable. So you get to where you can see the problem, keep your body comfortable. And then I say, no, on the other half of the screen, I have people divided in half, like what we're doing right here. And I say, picture one way of dealing with the problem, but keep your body comfortable. So then you could picture a particular stroke you want to take and how it would feel to make that swing. But you're doing it from a position of your body helping you, not interfering, because you've got control of your body. It's comfortable and ready to respond. And that's where this idea of, flow and connecting with your body, I think, is very important, because it will feel right, and you'll know it with your body if what you've done feels right. You'll know before the ball has gone very far that it's likely to wind up where you're hoping. But it's a matter of the self-control first. So I think, your story about how when you just told him to listen to some calming music actually worked, or try a little meditation or something. That the issue is bringing your body on board and making your connection with your body something that improves your game and doesn't interfere with it.
Wow. So I'm going into this new golf season here, 2024, and I've been on medical hiatus from golf for about 3 months.
Sorry.
Pinched nerve, tennis elbow. So just letting it rest, not a problem. But over these 3 months of not touching a golf club, there's been opportunity for doubt to start dictating, oh, you're so rusty, it's going to be terrible, you're going to have a tough year, and I'm trying to fight that with, hey, you know how to swing a club, you know how to score, you know what you're doing out there. So I have this internal battle going on, and I'd love to just squash the doubt and just focus on being comfortable and trusting myself. How can this help?
What I would try to do is go into a state of self-hypnosis, get your body floating safe and comfortable. And we've developed this app, about Revery, where you get to hear my mellifluous voice giving you instructions of how to do it, interacting with you, ask a question, you get a response that's different depending on what you say. And get your body floating safe and comfortable. We have a stress management app. And then I would actually ask you to focus in self-hypnosis on your relationship with your body, because the little story you told me, Fred, is one that is sort of conveys annoyance or resentment or, damn it, this thing is keeping me from what I'm doing and I'm just losing time and losing connection with my skill and all this stuff. Not a very positive frame. And I would say, you know what? You and your body are getting older together, like me and my body, and you're doing something that is taking care of your body. You're being a good parent to your body and helping it recover if it's got a problem. Your body has gotten you out of a lot of scrapes. You're helping it now. And think of it as you and your body reaching a new understanding about how you will help it get better so it can help you play better. But it's not that it's an annoyance or an interference, which in some ways it is. I get that. But more that you're kind of you're giving your body a vacation and you're helping it heal. And you're hoping that that will have the effect of your body feeling better and you playing better. So I would try and experience it in those terms so that you're appreciating what your body can do and helping it get back to speed rather than feeling interrupted, interfered with, annoyed.
Yeah, well, and I think golfers are plagued by doubt.
Sure. I think that's, from what I know of that, yes. So how do you handle it?
Right. I'm asking you.
Oh, that's my, all right. Yeah, well, the way
how do we handle it?
there's a saying, Fred, that when you come across an obstacle on the road, it's often a signpost. And so I would say it's a way of telling yourself there's something you need to pay attention to that can improve your game even more. And so it's a fluid, complex game. Little movements have big effects. And so what you're doing is further tuning your ability to interact with your body in such a way that it helps you do what you want to do. And so anything you can learn about your body and how it's reacting, can you learn to play in a way that is less likely to bother that nerve or, affect your shoulder? Can you adjust your swing so that it is less likely to cause strain that your body doesn't need? Because this is an interaction between you and your body. So I would, again, in self-hypnosis, sort of say, listen to your body as you start to resume your swing and say, what are the movements that feel good and feel safe, and what are the ones that don't? What can I learn from this about how to play differently and play better so that I'm not, putting a demand on some part of my body that it's not capable of fulfilling.
So it is a lot of paying attention to yourself.
To yourself and your body, to your body. It's not just yourself, it's your body. And
where's the disconnect between the two? Yourself, your body.
Oh, because, you and your body have a partnership, right? It lets you do what you want to do, but you control how it does it. And they're not the same thing. And so, you can wear it out and overstress it, and do things that cause it harm, or you can work with it and do things that get what you want, but also keeps your body healthy and safe. And too much tension, too much pressure can interfere with both, with your body and also your goals, what you want to do. But you're not the same. You are your body's keeper. You're someone who's looking after it. And if you look after it well, it will take care of you. And if you don't, it won't be able to. And so I think it's a way of, in hypnosis, of coming to a sense of sort of equilibrium, between your goals and your body's goals. Your body's goal is to stay healthy and function well, and yours is to play some great rounds and things like that. And hopefully, most of the time, as probably is true in your life, they've gone together just fine. But every once in a while, they don't.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. But think of yourself, dealing with your body the way you would if your kid, when they were little, was injured. You wouldn't get frustrated with them. You'd give them a hug and help them, figure out how to not hurt themselves more and heal. And that's sort of the role you're in with your body. You're not the same as your body, but you can't live without it. So you want to take good care of it.
Absolutely. Let's take another time out. We'll be back. 1 minute. All right, David, I need to know the history of how you got to this point of creating Revery.com, but also how you developed your program.
Sure. Well, I developed Revery.com with the help of Ariel Poehler, who's a serial entrepreneur who heard me talking at a brain body summit at Stanford about 4 years ago. And he started Strava, which is exercise app that's doing very well, a bunch of others. And he said, hey, would you like to build a hypnosis app? And I said, what a cool idea. Let's do it. And so we started with Alexa. At the time, Alexa was making it very easy for people to build programs so that the talking speaker could, be used by more and more people. And we did a stop smoking program on the app, got people hypnotized For my body, smoking is a poison. I need my body to live. I owe my body respect and protection. We got 19% stop smoking, which is about as good as you get with varenicline or bupropion or Nicorette. It's not bad. And the remainder cut down substantially on how much they were smoking. Wow. And so we thought, this works. We can do this. And so then we decided, but he said it was a little clunky working with the smart speaker, and people didn't like their speakers listening into their conversations at home and all that. So he said, let's build an app. So we did. And we've now had about 500,000 downloads, and people are using it for stopping smoking, for stress, for pain, for insomnia, for eating better, for focusing attention, which is a key issue.
Which is really why I wanted to talk. Yeah,
you bet. And so, and the nice thing is, you can, all you got to do is, open the app and get right to the exercise you want, and you hear my voice talking interactively to you. We have the typical exercise is about 10 minutes, but we have 1 minute refreshers. And so you can do it every day, a few times a day. You can do it before you go out to play and just get your mind in the right frame of mind for.
But don't do it while you're driving to the golf course.
Probably not. Okay. That's right. Although, there's this phrase highway hypnosis, where you realize you were thinking about something so much that you passed your exit on the freeway. So there is a sort of hypnotic phenomenon, but I don't recommend using the app on the freeway. That's right. But it is a way of preparing yourself and focusing attention. So I thought, I've used hypnosis, Fred, with about 7,000 people in my career, patients and research subjects. And I thought, that's a lot of people. I feel good about that. But hypnosis is sort of the Rodney Dangerfield of psychotherapy. You remember Rodney Dangerfield?
Of course.
I don't get no respect. He said they asked me to leave a bar so they could start happy hour, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Take my wife, please.
Yeah, right. and it's the oldest Western conception of a psychotherapy. The first time a talking interaction was thought to have therapeutic potential, and yet it is underutilized. There aren't enough people who do it, who teach people how to do it, and it's viewed as either silly or dangerous or both. And the way it started for me, Fred, was it's a bit of a genetic illness in my family, that my parents were both psychiatrists and psychoanalysts. And they told me I was free to be any kind of psychiatrist I wanted to be. So here I am. But, dinner table conversation was pretty interesting. And I would occasionally get to watch my father making a movie of a highly hypnotizable patient having these non-epileptic seizures, and he could bring them on and then teach her to control them. And you'd watch these patients go into this seizure state. So when I got to medical school, I thought, well, I better take a hypnosis course, which I did. The chief of psychiatry at Mass General was teaching one. And I was on my...
Were you at Harvard?
Harvard, yeah. I was at Harvard Medical School. And I was on my clinical rotation in pediatrics. And the nurse says, Spiegel, your next patient's in room 342. And I'm following the sound of her wheezing down the hall. She's in status asthmaticus. And she'd been hospitalized every month for 3 months. I walk in the room, pretty 15-year-old redhead, bolt upright in bed, knuckles white, struggling for breath, mother standing there crying, nursed in the room. And they had tried subcutaneous epinephrine twice, didn't work. They were thinking about general anesthesia and steroids. And I didn't know what the hell to do. So I thought, well, why don't I try hypnosis? So I said, you want to learn a breathing exercise? And she nods. And so I get her hypnotized. And then I start to sweat when I realized that we hadn't gotten to asthma in the course yet. So I came up with something very clever. I said, each breath you take will be a little deeper and a little easier. And within 5 minutes, she's lying back in bed. She's not wheezing anymore. Her knuckles aren't white. Her mother stopped crying. The nurse ran out of the room. And my intern comes looking for me. And I figure he's going to pat me on the back and say, great job, Spiegel. He said, the nurse has just filed a complaint with the nursing supervisor that you violated Massachusetts law by hypnotizing a minor without parental consent. Now, that look on your face, that was probably the look on my face too, I'll tell you. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Massachusetts has a lot of weird laws, but that isn't on the list. And her mother was standing right next to me.
And then you go to California. Come on.
Right, well, I had to escape, violating Massachusetts laws.
Like we don't have weird laws here.
Well, you know what?
Berkeley.
There's actually a story there, Fred, because at the time on the East Coast, psychiatry was very much dominated by rather rigid classical psychoanalysis, and Freud gave up hypnosis, so who was anyone else to use it, kind of thing. And California had a sort of freer feel to it, actually. I can tell you about that, but I'll just say, so the intern says to me, Spiegel, you're going to have to stop doing this. And I said, oh, really? Why? He said, it's dangerous. I said, are you kidding? You're going to give her general anesthesia and you think my talking to her is dangerous? And he said, well, you have to stop doing it. I said, tell you what, take me off the case if you want. You have the right to do that. But as long as she's my patient, I'm not telling her something I know is not true. So he stomped off. And there was a council of war with the chief resident, the attending, and they came back on Monday with a radical idea. They said, let's ask the patient. I don't think they'd ever done that before. Oh, my goodness. And she said, I like this. Well, she was hospitalized one subsequent time, but went on to study to be a respiratory therapist. And wow. I thought that anything that could help a patient that much violate the head nurse and a Massachusetts law that didn't exist had to be worth looking into. And I've been doing it ever since. And you can see it with your eyes. It's an opportunity for people to change in a hurry. And to mobilize and use a resource they have anyway. People who are highly hypnotizable, even without any formal hypnosis, are the kind of people that get lost in a sunset, or they're so busy working on something that they forget about dinner or something like that. They tend to engage intently with other people and really feel with other people. They're sort of intuitively connected with people. And that's a benefit. It's not a liability. And if there are some people who are just sort of too open to other people's points of view. But if we're social creatures, we're susceptible of social influence. Hypnosis sometimes in a more intense way, but it's always under your control. Nobody is making you do something. You're allowing yourself to immerse yourself in that. And, God knows if you look at, current American politics, you can see that people are susceptible of social influence. So yes. That's not the problem. The problem is how you identify your ability and use it to your advantage. And so that's it. And I must say, I came to California, to Stanford, because I sensed there was an openness to things like this that were different. And Stanford gave me the opportunity to, nobody, patted me on the back and said, here, we'll help you do this. But they let me do it. And if you can, get grants and write papers and run a lab and take care of patients, that was fine with Stanford, and that's why I'm still there, So the opportunity to take advantage of whatever the phenomenon has to teach us is something that I made the most of at Stanford and feel good about it. But I want to spread the wealth. I want everybody to have an opportunity to take advantage of it. So I hope that Revery will allow many more people, and we've seen it happening, that many more people have been able to identify and take advantage of their own hypnotic ability. We even have a hypnotizability test on it. And so we can help people determine how hypnotizable they are, and therefore how easy it is for them to use the app.
All right. Do you need to get that call?
No, I don't. Thanks.
But we need to take a break. So we'll do that. We'll do that right now.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. I'm assuming you grew up on the East Coast?
I did. Grew up in New York. Yep.
In New York?
Yep.
Went to Boston, out to California.
That's right. You got it.
You're a heretic.
A little bit. A stop in New Haven for 4 years on the way, but that was it. So.
Wow. Okay. And so all this time, once you figured that out with that first patient, this kind of drew you in and you continued to pursue it and develop it?
That's exactly right.
And it's a course of study now at Stanford. And
it is.
Tell me how far you've been able to take this beyond the app. And we'll get to the details of the app in just a moment.
Well, there is a community of professionals who use hypnosis. We're not big, but there are a couple of professional hypnosis societies. I have colleagues who have done very good research on it, but I've been able to publish, about 150 papers on hypnosis, and publish in really good journals where people respect it. We had the cover of the American Journal of Psychiatry showing that you can hypnotize people to change their perception of color. And they actually do that they drain color from a color grid or add color to a black and white grid, and they actually change blood flow in the parts of the brain that process color vision. So I call it my believing is seeing experiment, where you think.
But both of my sons are colorblind. This wouldn't help them, would it?
Probably not, although it might help them. It would not make it go away, but it would maybe, there are sort of on the edges of color perception cues that would give you an idea of what the color might be.
Yeah.
And it's possible that they could use it to sort of pick up the subtle cues, because for them, if they're trying to look at color, it's an exercise in frustration sometimes. I just can't tell red from green, and that, it frustrates.
And that's what it is. It's a red-green thing.
Yeah, that's the standard one. Actually, my father had
and I
that.
know that, like, when my son's on the golf course, one of them, and it's a red flag and there's trees behind it, he can't see it at all.
He can't see it at all. That's interesting.
Right,
wow,
he can't.
Wow,
and the other one just says, I'm color stupid. I just can't figure out what goes together.
Well, it might be possible for them to try and pick up cues that they might be ignoring, because what I hear you both them saying, and I understand, I'd be like this too, is it's frustrating. So you just kind of shut it down, just say, don't bother, because you're just going to wind up feeling bad. And so if there are any ways around the edges that they can train their brain to pick up cues that would hint that there may be a contrast there that they're not seeing, it might be worth a try just to see if they can improve it a little bit.
Fascinating.
It's because I had a patient recently, a delightful woman, very accomplished, successful woman, who had to have some chemotherapy that pretty much wiped out her taste. She just couldn't taste anything. And this is a woman who was a gourmet chef, a wine connoisseur, and a lot of the pleasure in her life came from eating. And it was more and more frustrating. You could tell, because she had built so much of the pleasure in her life around those things. And I had her, she was quite hypnotizable, and I had her try to eat in a different way in which she would retrain her brain to make the most of the sensations. And I used what sommeliers teach you to do. The way that they actually taste wine when they're serious about it is that they hold a puddle of wine in their mouth. They inhale through their mouth and exhale through their nose, so that, because much of your taste is actually in your nose, not in your tongue and your mouth. And so they expose all of the receptors to the taste and the aroma of the food. And I got an email from her the next day, and she said, I'm cured. I can taste things again. It started out with something she had some residual taste for, and that was vanilla ice cream. She loved it. So I had her start with that, but then other foods that she liked to eat. And she is just thrilled. She's back at it again. And so awesome. I think sometimes what can get in the way of recovery is the frustration that takes over when things aren't just the way they were before. And instead of focusing on that, on the glass half empty, focus on how you can retrain your brain to make better use of whatever information it's getting. And so that's what might help your sons, and I think is something that people can use for a variety of things. The same is true with pain control. We have a great 4 different pain exercises on the Revery app, and people are they think I'm just condemned to this misery, and the more they believe that, the more miserable they get. And so if instead you say, I can teach my brain to modulate these signals. Right now, for example, Fred, you're sitting in a chair, I guess. You were not aware of the sensations of your body touching the chair, I hope. If you were, we could just stop the interview now. And so your brain automatically, it's not an area of conflict for you, but it just shuts it down. I don't need to pay attention to that. It doesn't matter. Your brain can do that with pain, too. And the problem with pain is that a lot of people, when they've been injured, they want to be back just the way they were before it happened. And I would be too. I get that. But all that does is get you to pay more attention to the pain and less to other things you would ordinarily be paying attention to. That's where the focus of attention in hypnosis is so useful, because it gets you to focus on what you're for, what you want, not on what you're against or frustrated by. So you can sort of use it like a searchlight to focus, find the thing you want to find and pay attention to, and put the other things outside of conscious awareness. And we found using functional magnetic resonance imaging in the brain that one of the things that happens in hypnosis is you turn down activity in what we call the salience network. It's a part of the brain. The cingulate cortex is like a C on its ends in the middle of your brain, and the front part is sort of your alarm system. You hear a loud noise, and it says, "Wait a minute, what's going on out there? You better check." You turn down activity in that part of the brain. People who are more hypnotizable actually have more binding of GABA, which is an inhibitory neurotransmitter, gamma-aminobutyric acid, in the anterior cingulate. So they've got their own little internal pharmacy. That's the same transmitter that benzodiazepines activate. And so you got your own little internal hypnopharmacy that will help you soothe your anxiety center and worry less about things you might be worrying about. And we actually have on Revery what we call a hypnopharmacy, where you enter a few of the problems you want to deal with, and we give you a prescription for which of the hypnotic exercises you can use to help you with that. But hypnosis is a sort of built-in anti-anxiety experience that will help you and your brain handle problems with less stress.
You said about that woman, she's quite hypnotizable. Then you said people who are more hypnotizable than others.
Right.
What does that mean? And what is the resistance for those who are not?
Well, it's interesting you use the term resistance. That's the way a lot of people have described it, that they're resisting. They're not resisting. People's brains are different. And we change in hypnotizability until we're young adults, and then we don't change very much anymore. So most children are in trances most of the time. You know, you ask your 8-year-old to come in for dinner and he doesn't hear you. He's out playing in the street and what the hell, you know. And gradually, as we mature cognitively, as we start to value reason over experience, you know, we analyze things more. Some of us lose some of that hypnotic ability. And so by the time you're in your early 20s, your hypnotizability is about as stable as IQ over a 25, 30-year interval. That's been studied at Stanford here. And so what we find is that highly hypnotizable people have more functional connectivity. That is, when one is up, the other is up, between the executive control region, the prefrontal cortex, and the anterior cingulate, this salience network. And so it makes sense that if the part of your brain that's thinking is coordinating activity with the part of your brain that's saying maybe you should be thinking about something else, that you then are more likely to allow yourself to go into a deep state of focused attention. And that's what we see. So about 20% of the adult population is extremely hypnotizable. About 60% are somewhat hypnotizable. We call the highs the poets. They're just in it. They just feel it. The majority of people, about almost 2/3, are at least somewhat hypnotizable. They have an experience, they step back and reflect and wonder what it's like. We call them the diplomats. And then there's 20% we call the researchers who just aren't. They're not hypnotizable. They can still benefit from the way we approach problems by focusing on what you're for, not what you're against. And what we generally find is that highs respond more quickly, but others can respond as well too. It just takes them a little longer, a little more work. But the highs do it quicker. But you can find out in about 5 minutes what your hypnotizability is on the Revery app.
Okay, let's talk about the Revery app and what the process is for somebody. I understand you have a free trial with it.
We do. We have a free one week trial. Try it. See if you like it. If you do, great. If you don't, it doesn't cost you anything other than a little bit of time.
So you can either do the app or the website, and it's REVERI.
That's correct. And so you can go to the website. You get a lot of information about Revery, about me, about our research on hypnosis. You can get references to our papers, our publications, and get a feel for the whole array of treatments that we have. It's a health and wellness skill. It's a way to learn how to better manage your body and problems like insomnia, pain, stress, focus, phobias and anxieties, eating more sensibly, stopping smoking, stopping vaping, It's a way of, and you can take your pick. You can also download it from the App Store if you have an iOS phone, or from Google Play if you have an Android. And you can get the downloads from the website as well. So it could be a fun experience at the least. At the most, it has changed people's lives. We have people who just say they're a different person.
Does it take dedication to do it, or is it like once or twice and you're good to go, or is it an ongoing process?
It can be some of both. For some people, they get it. They just, I had one woman who said, I didn't even want to stop smoking, but I had thought in hypnosis about protecting and respecting my body. The second time I tried it, I lit up a cigarette and went, "Feh, who needs this?" And she said, "I haven't smoked since. I can't believe it." And she actually,
come on, David, did she really go feh?
Feh, she did feh. I kid you. And then she said to me, Spiegel, this is some kind of crazy ass voodoo shit. And I mean that in a good way. She said, but her friends can't believe it. They say, you smoked for 25 years. You were like the smoker. So for some people, it's like that. For other people, it's an exercise they can do every day in the morning when they get up, or before they go to sleep if they're trying to go to sleep, or when they want to get back to sleep in the middle of the night. So for some people, it's more of a regular practice. For other people, once they make the transition, they put it aside and go ahead, or they try it for something else. So the nice thing is it doesn't have to take that much time and effort for many people. But even if it does, it's worth it.
All right. So once the free trial is complete, and how long is that?
That's a week.
Okay,
and
then what happens?
You have a choice of signing up for a month at a time, for a year, or for a lifetime, which is not a whole lot more than a year, actually. And so the price has changed, so I won't quote a price, but it's not outrageous.
Sure.
It's even for a lifetime, it's less than you would usually pay just to go to a professional for one session to do hypnosis in person. So it's a good investment in your future and in your mind and body. Wow.
This has been fascinating, and I can definitely see the uses for golf. I really can.
I'm glad. Well, I'm glad to hear that from you. That makes me feel good that you can see the connections.
Well, thank you so much, David. I really appreciate the conversation and the insights and the education.
You're most welcome, Fred. It's been a pleasure.
So I've been traveling a lot lately in the last month, and that has been really helpful to stay away from golf clubs and keep my arm in a good place, and stretching and resistance training every day for an hour. And I think I'm going to be picking up a golf club soon. I'm really excited. But I'm headed out again tomorrow for a long weekend in Atlanta, and I was really hoping to play with Dr. Bob Jones, meet up with him there, but it's not going to happen. And that's okay, because the weather's crappy there too. But we're still planning to get him back on the podcast the week of the Masters to talk about golf history and the impact his grandfather, Bobby Jones, had on the game and that region of the country. Thanks go out this week to our newest Golf Smarter ambassador, Gary Leslie of Bay City, Michigan. Gary, are you a Bay City roller? Okay. If you'd like to get a choice of 3 great gifts just for sharing with us where you're from and where you play, write directly to me and I'll send you simple instructions on how to record. Check out today's show notes to find links about each gift that you have to choose from. And thanks for your patience as Mulligans continues to be on hiatus, but it will be back soon. And we're going to have a big announcement of our new format of episodes from our archives in the next few weeks. So please stay tuned for that. If you have any questions, comments, and especially about our new AI-generated show notes, or maybe suggestions for upcoming episodes, write to golfsmarterpodcast@gmail.com or click on the Hey Fred button when you're visiting golfsmarter.com.